Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. And once again, I have someone else on screen with me. Someone else who I will now ask to make a self introduction. So, my dear guest, please introduce yourself.
All right. Well, thanks, Jonathan, for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Rosalyn Briar, and I'm an author. And I my uh, my book that's coming out soon is called The Mermaid and the Pearl. And I'm just really glad to be here. And thanks for having me on your channel.
You're welcome. I think it's actually going to be out by the time the interview, uh, gets posted. So you can just say it's available now. Go get it.
Okay, my new release then.
Okay. Uh, now that we've done the introduction, I have a confession to make. I think you're actually the one who inspired me to do offer interviews. You used to do them on Instagram a while back, if you remember.
I
So
did, yeah. I would do them quite often with some writer friends and with writers that were coming out with new books. And I haven't done them in a while, but I don't know. This is kind of now you're maybe re-inspiring me to do that again because it is always so much fun, and to actually get to talk face to face with another writer is always really cool. So yeah, thanks.
okay, and now that we're already on this, on this little diversion, you are quite active on Instagram and in a lot of very diverse ways. You post a lot of quotes. You post a lot of mood boards. You also do a lot of a lot of more candid shots. So I kind of want to ask, how do you how do you keep your how do you keep your passion going for Instagram?
That's a really good question. I've come to really love Instagram. Of course, with a lot of social media, anytime something changes with the algorithm, it can be frustrating, but Instagram was always one of my favorites because it can combine both like visual art with written words. And so that was always my favorite part. Now it's getting to where more reels are what they want, the algorithm wants, but I still enjoy doing like a really pretty looking post with like a long caption. That's still my favorite thing to do. But I try to just keep it interesting. I guess with the changes with the algorithm, it's always I guess it's always a I don't know, a journey that you just keep working toward. And yeah, I just find new inspiration. I'll look at what other people are doing with their reels or with their posts, and just try to always have something that's visually interesting, but also I try to have something to say. Some days I don't. Some days it's just a quick hello and kind of talking about goals and things like that. But um, yeah, Instagram is just fun for me because it's both a visual art and a written word. Whereas even though I love Twitter, Twitter's so much fun. It's probably where I've gotten to meet most of the writers that I know, but also Twitter goes through its own changes all the time too. So it's just I think with any social media, for me it's like you're just constantly figuring it out. I'm sure you feel the same way with everything. It's just every day it's something new, but I guess that's what keeps it fun.
Yeah, you could say so. Now, would you say Instagram is your main uh, marketing driver, or do you uh, or, or how would you say you treat it?
Yeah, I would say I'm not sure exactly when it comes to book sales or marketing, which one, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, which one is my top place for marketing. Because I know I've met so many people through Twitter and I know so many more writers there. But I do think Instagram is a very unique place for selling books um, and connecting with readers. And so I don't know. I think it probably is the top place for me. It depends on everybody's taste or skill level. Like some people I know are really great at TikTok, and I'm terrible at TikTok. So some people can sell tons of books through there. Whereas I don't know, I'm okay with Instagram, and so I like working on it there. And another one, some people are really great at Facebook with the different reader groups on Facebook, and I'm terrible at that. So I think everybody can find their little space that works for them and just kind of reach out on the other social media apps and other ways. But yeah, I'd say Instagram has been really fun for me, and it is always fun, especially if you have a book launch. I think new covers, like for example, like a book cover, that really gets a lot of attention over on Instagram.
Given you mentioned book covers, do you ever see or do you ever see variant covers discussed there in any way, or have you ever tried that yourself?
What is it?
A
It was kind of,
variant cover. So testing out various versions of what the cover design could look like.
yeah, that's a really cool idea. I have seen people do that where they test thumbnail versions of different book covers. I guess that's maybe what you're meaning, and to see which kind would get more views or clicked on the most. And that is definitely something interesting to do, especially with my book now with The Mermaid and the Pearl. The cover for that, I had just gotten it quickly designed by the person who made the cover for the whole set, for the Realm of Darkness set. And so the cover kind of fits with that set, but it's not necessarily my taste. So if I were to publish this book separately from The Realm of Darkness, um, I think I would probably get do a different cover and, possibly get more eyes on it. It might, like you said, it might do better with a different cover. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a great thing for people to do if they have the means to it or the capability of making your own covers, because I'm not quite there yet in making my own covers, but that would be interesting to do.
Okay, nor am I. So I'm probably gonna stick with the first design that comes to my head, or the first rendition of that design that some artist is gonna be able to do satisfactorily.
Yes.
Anyway, given we started discussing the actual books, um, I want to ask: did you start out writing novels, or did you start writing short form fiction?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, I started writing, I got really into writing novels, I guess about 5 years ago. But I really didn't pay attention to how much I wrote before that. I had never written fiction, I guess. I would write poetry. I wrote I really enjoyed that through, say, high school and in college. I took some poetry classes and I really enjoyed it. And I always used that as a form, like an art form, just to express myself. I'd write it down in notebooks and things. And then I just one day I thought I kept thinking of a story, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try writing this down. And so it turned into the first novel I ever wrote, and I kind of obsessively wrote it pretty quickly, and then got into the writing communities places, and then that's when I got more into writing short fiction, and I started writing a few short stories and things like that. So I think it is kind of maybe backwards. Maybe I should have done short fiction first, but either way, I think they're fun ways to. Um, they have their different challenges. With a short story, you have to pack a lot into one sentence. But I think when it comes to short fiction, I think writing poetry for all those years actually helped with that because you have to pack so much into just in so much emotion or imagery into one sentence. And so it kind of works out. But yeah, I started more writing poetry. And then just one day out of nowhere, I just decided to dive into writing novels. And I don't know, now I'm kind of obsessed with it. So
I just noticed your two leading ladies in the corner over there.
yeah, I had to put them back there. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got my picture there of them by Winter Maiden 11 on Twitter.
Okay, I'm gonna link her stuff over there. I'm also gonna link yours, obviously, just above my own, because I'm that gracious a host. Anyway,
Yes. Thank
um,
you.
I noticed that you. I noticed because we've been talking about your Instagram. You've posted a lot of stuff on. Okay, not a lot, some stuff on fairy tales, and I know that, and I've already did arc reviews for two of your works, both of which are based on fairy tales. So uh, I have to ask, for how long has your interest within this topic been brewing?
Oh yeah, I've always loved fairy tales just in general and stories. One of the earliest books I can remember reading, like really remember, that got me into reading novels when I was a child was Ella Enchanted, which is a Cinderella retelling. And so I think I've always been a lover of fairy tales. And so when I started writing, the first novel I wrote wasn't a fairy tale retelling, but when I started writing my second one, I really researched the fairy tales. I read them all. Well, the Grimm's fairy tales I read. I had an old book from a long time ago, and I just found it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to read these and see if any inspiration comes to mind, because I always loved reading fairy tale retellings, and so it definitely inspired me to kind of, I don't know, kind of jump into that as being a main part of my, I don't know, author brand, or like that would be kind of a big thing I do, not as part of like a dark fantasy genre, but more have my own niche of where I focus on fairy tale retelling. So, yeah, I've always been obsessed with fairy tales, and yeah, it's fun to kind of pick them apart, to research the history of them, and yeah, it's just been something I really enjoy doing.
And then have your own works that can get that can then get picked apart.
Yes.
Okay.
It's weird.
Um, Next up, you said that your debut novel was kind of a more feverish effort, as in you had an idea and you just wanted to see it to fruition. Would you describe your would you describe your other works as a similarly as similar passion projects, or do you have more of a structural organizational effort behind the behind the creative effort?
Yeah, that's a cool question too. I think from talking with other writers, I think a lot of people go through that where maybe your first few works, you're just writing, you're just learning so much in those first few works, and then I think after I wrote that first novel, I mean, I had no idea anything. I hadn't read or um, any craft books. I think I had started watching craft videos on YouTube to kind of help me at least finish that first novel, which has never been published, but it's there. I'm proud of it being done, but it's not anything I would be proud enough to publish. But I think a lot of people go through that. There's a lot to learn when it comes to writing novels, and I'm always learning. I'm always trying to up my game. I'm always trying to take it to the next step. But yeah, I think um, yeah, I they've all been passion projects, but I think now a little more structured now that I know, or at least trying to, like I said, trying to get better, trying to work harder. I do usually outline, and that helps me see things through to the end where I don't just kind of wander off and never finish the book. So an outline helps me, and it helps keep kind of a structure to the story. And yeah, but I think even with an outline, I still have a lot of passion for each book. And when I'm writing it, when I'm kind of in the thick of it, really in the drafting mode, I definitely become obsessed with each story. And so, yeah, I think they all are special to me in some way. And yeah, it's fun.
Okay, I did not mean to open that. Okay, browsing for Windows on my browsing for apps on my phone. Ah, yeah, here. Uh, are there any? are there any deleted scenes that you that from your books, i.e., things you wanted to include but then realized that your book would be better off without?
Hmm, that's really good. So I, um, I'd say for most of my projects, except for a current one that I'm working on, that I'm still drafting, I'd say for a lot of my projects, I was an underwriter, and most of the time, for most of my books, I'm usually adding things with every draft instead of taking things away. So I'm trying to think. I guess in one of my books, I meant to end it a different way, and it ended completely differently than I had first thought of. Same, I guess that was with The Crown of Bones. With A Sea of Pearls and Leaves, that same thing. I had a different ending in mind when I first came up with the story, but that changed. But I guess nothing really got deleted because I hadn't written it yet. Um, Trying to think with The Mermaid and the Pearl if anything was deleted. Uh, I don't know. I think if anything, things got added. And I'm fairly good at sticking to my outline, so I don't tend to write scenes that I don't want in there. So, yeah, no, I don't think that's happened to me. But I think with my current project, the book I'm currently drafting, I think that's going to happen. I actually didn't outline this one as strictly as I usually do, and I'm just having fun with it. I think a lot of those fun scenes are probably going to have to get cut out. So, but either way, I can always enjoy them myself, and it's always a learning experience either way.
There is something I can suggest about those scenes you might end up cutting.
Hmm.
Keep them as source material for tie-in novellas.
Oh, yeah.
That's something I've heard. That's something I've heard is more or less on vogue with some people.
Hmm.
Okay. Next up, the opposite question. You said that you are uh, an underwriter. So, what would you say is your favorite uh, addition between drafts? So, what is your favorite thing you added from? What is your favorite thing that your outline didn't specify?
Okay, so with The Mermaid and the Pearl, I I think it was strange that when I was just first outlining, so I hadn't written anything yet, um, but in just the outline, when I was thinking, okay, I need it, I'm going to do a Little Mermaid retelling. So I kind of had my outline going. I knew my main character, um, but the whole book was originally just going to be in her perspective, in Muriel's point of view. But soon after I started writing, once she met Yara, I knew that I had to write scenes, or at least, at that point, at least some like interludes or scenes in Yara's perspective. And then it turned out that um, I was like, no, I think it needs to be dual point of view to an extent. And so that was actually added in after the outlining phase. And so that's something, again, as an underwriter, or you know, at least trying to keep an outline. I was like, okay, this is going to change things up, but at least it worked out for me. I ended up really enjoying writing Yara's chapters, and I think even more than Muriel's chapters. And so it worked out for me in that point. Trying to think back with A Sea of Pearls and Leaves, basically, kind of the same thing happened. It changed how the story went. I originally didn't have plan for Soren to, the prince in that story. I didn't plan for Soren to have his own point of view. And I think that really changed it. A lot of people ended up loving him the most out of all three characters. So I'm kind of glad I did that because I had people, message me with how much they loved him. And I don't know, looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I almost didn't write him into as big of a character in the story. Um, but yeah, with any other book, I don't think that happened. I had it pretty well outlined for the other ones, but for um, for those two books, yeah, it definitely kind of came down to a whole point of view was new to me. But
Yeah.
again, as an outliner, as an underwriter, I definitely had room in the story to do that, and it worked out. I was happy with both characters, so
Yeah.
yeah.
As someone who read the ARCs for both, let me just say thank you for this, uh, for enriching your work the way you did, because it truly made quite a difference when reading them.
Oh,
Okay. Next up, another I have another pair of questions, or rather a singular question that aims at contrasting aspects. So, what is your favorite part about writing, or what is your favorite element of writing?
Hmm. So I guess for a few books and or even short stories for a while, I really liked the revision stage, or um, and I think I don't know now. Right now, um, I'm kind of missing drafting. I don't have as much time right now. I'm going to be getting back into it now that my edits for another book, Her Dark Enchantments, have been turned in to the publisher. So I have time now to continue drafting my other project. But for so long, I loved revisions, and now I think I'm really like leaning into loving just the drafting phase. I think it's because it's some of my friends on Instagram call it the heart draft because you're just pouring your heart out onto the page, and you really just it's a way to love your first draft instead of calling it, the rough draft. Or people are like, oh, your rough draft or your first draft can be garbage. It's like, yeah, it can, because no one's going to see it. But also, I don't want to call it garbage. It's going to become something someday. I'm going to love it. So I like calling it the heart draft. And yeah, I think I've been really enjoying the drafting phase of several different projects, whether it's a short story or a novel. It's like kind of getting the bones of the story out there, and that makes me happy.
Okay. Conversely, what would you say is your least favorite part about writing, or element of writing?
Oh, I think I will say I enjoy it all because I probably wouldn't do it if I didn't like something so much. But if I was ranking things, um, as exciting as the outlining part is, I guess it's not my favorite. I like daydreaming about the story. I like coming up with the ideas. So won't say I hate doing it, but I think I really like the drafting and revising part of it, whereas the outlining part is just kind of like I just usually want to get it over with. I'm like, okay, I have an outline. I'm ready to start writing because once I get into the book and I that's when I really get to know, at least for me, it's different for every writer, but for me, when I'm actually in the drafting mode is when I get to know my characters. And then I go back and tweak things. I'm like, they wouldn't do this or they wouldn't sit talk like this. And so then I go back and change things based on who they are. And as much as I try to outline or develop my characters ahead of time, a lot of it sometimes just comes to me as I'm writing. So I'd say I usually am just trying to get the outlining phase over with quickly because I know things will change once I'm writing.
Okay, that was a very interesting answer. Next set of questions is about publishing, but I'm gonna skip it for now because you are as we established a little bit earlier, you are a special case. Namely, your next release is gonna be part of a set or a collection. So I have to ask, uh, how did how did the initiative for this collection come to be?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I've done books where I've self-published, and then this one is part of a collection, and then my next one is through a publishing house. I'm kind of all over the place. But yeah, with this current book, The Mermaid and the Pearl, it's part of the Realm of Darkness box set, which is like a set of ebooks of 40 plus ebooks, all that are dark fantasy or paranormal romance. And I was asked by a friend, an Instagram friend, so it's a good place to make connections. I was just approached by her. She was planning on, um, oh, now I'm blanking on the word, but she was going to submit or apply to be a part of the box set, and she was telling me about it and that they were still had openings for other writers. And so I just took a look at what they were doing, and I was like, that'd be a great way to get my name out there with, if we're all working together, it's a great way to get our works out there in the hands of other readers. And so it sounded interesting to me, but at that point, I was writing a different book. I was still writing Her Dark Enchantments, and I had no other plans for a book yet. And so it was whenever we have a Facebook group. So I applied and was luckily, accepted into the set. But then we had to come up with what our books would be and actually write them. And I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do. Um, I could tell they had to be either dark fantasy or a paranormal romance. And so a lot of people in the set, um, I love reading these kind of books, but it's not what I write. So a lot of the sets are like paranormal romance, like shifters and werewolves and vampires and things like that. It's not my genre. As much as I love reading those books, I was a little nervous when I got in the set because I thought, oh, what I write fairy tale retellings. What am I doing here? But then they said the books could have any sort of mythical creature. And I thought, okay, I could do something with mermaids. I had been wanting to do a mermaid book. I had this idea of like a mermaid book with an underwater circus. I just hadn't really fleshed it out yet. And I was like, I think I could do that and then tie it into the world of A Sea of Pearls and Leaves. That way it'd be tied into another book because a lot of these authors use these sets to like put out a book that's in a series. And since I don't really write series, I thought I could write within the same world. And that's kind of how it came to be. I was approached by someone and then I applied for it um, with mm, I'm not, I don't know if the right word to call them is a publishing company, but with the box set company, so I applied for it and yeah, it's just been a whirlwind since that happened because it all has gone by so fast. I guess it's because I had to write an entire book and then help market the whole set, and it's been crazy, but I think it's been worth it. And it's I've met a lot of other writers in our group that we have, so that's been really fun and worth it.
Okay, that's interesting. I couldn't help but notice because I did read the thing that uh, it seemed like you were building towards a sequel for The Mermaid and the Pearl. Is that currently in the works, or is that in the planning stages right now?
Yeah, that you're right. So that's in the planning stages. There's the possibility of another book in that world, and it would be it's I've just been doing kind of my planning stages since I have other books lined up first. Um, but in the planning stages, I kind of just I use Millinote, which is just a website, and I like to put pictures on there. It's kind of like you can write things out on there, you can plan things, you can do an outline. So I do like an outline with pictures and everything, and just kind of like an overall mood, not just a mood board, but a whole, everything that I want the book to be. And so, yeah, there's hopefully someday there will be another retelling set in that same world, and it would be a Rapunzel retelling. And yeah, I'm very excited for that. Hopefully within maybe within a year or so, I could actually get that going because I've got a couple other projects to do first.
Yeah, I have to ask uh, because as I've been around writing circles for a while, including on YouTube, and there's a lot of talk about stuff like World Anvil and Campfire, and I want to know, did you ever use any of those?
I have not, but I've heard so many good things about them. Um, yeah, I know a few people who are really big into world building and they use those. I've heard of both of them and I'm sure they're great. I haven't explored those yet, but definitely be something to look into, especially to keep, if you're going to for someone who's writing a series or something, I think it'd be totally worth it.
Hmm.
Do you use those?
No, I'm kind of I don't know if the word is old timer or technophobic. I just kind of I just kind of keep notes in Word.
Yeah. Yeah, that works too.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with some of those programs. I'm sure they're fancy and whatnot, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I want to pay for the subscription if it's not 100% for me. So,
Yeah. Now, you've already described it. You're in a unique position because you've done both self-publishing. You're currently going through a publishing house, and you're also now in this in the Realm of Darkness collection. Uh, what I what I want to ask is, uh, was that always the intention to sell your books through multiple avenues, or did that just happen?
yeah, I think it just happened naturally. When I first got into the writing community circles on various social media platforms, I was just trying to figure out what avenue to go with. I had seen you know, people talk about querying, and then I learned about self-publishing and the indie world, and so it just kind of it just kind of came naturally to me that I would kind of go start out with indie publishing and see where it went from there. And I don't know. I was thinking about self-publishing the book Her Dark Enchantments, but then I decided that this was one that I wanted to try querying, and same with one of the next book that I'm working on. I think I'll try to query that as well, but yeah, it just kind of all happened naturally. I um, was very excited when Quill and Crow Publishing House opened for novel submissions because it is a fairly new venture for them, and I was very excited when they opened for novel submissions because they were. I have a lot of respect for the owner of the company, and I just knew that my book would fit with their overall vibe or aesthetic, and yeah, I feel like I lucked out. I was accepted, and so I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, it all happened naturally. I think there's still, for example, if I do write that Rapunzel retelling, I'll self-publish that, and I do plan to get a different book cover for The Mermaid and the Pearl, and I'll be able, like, once that set is out, then I'll be able to release it on my own, and so I'll get a different cover for that and self-publish that. And so I think it's been kind of fun to almost be like hybrid, to work towards that. I think it's fun to self-publish things and get works out right away a lot faster, but then it's also fun to work with right now a publishing house. And yeah, I think it just happened naturally. I didn't know coming into it. I definitely didn't have a plan, and now it seems like a lot is going on, and I'm so grateful for it.
Okay. Um, no, given how often I ask these questions, you'd think I'd know them off the top of my head, but nope, I don't. Still need to check them. Anyway, uh, were any of your pre-existing ideas about one method of publishing or the other proven true or false?
That's a good question. I know with, say, for self-publishing or indie publishing, I know there's a lot of, I guess a lot of people may not take it as seriously. And so that's why I was um, especially for with my books that I self-published. I wanted to make sure they had a really nice cover, and also that that I worked with an editor. I just wanted to make sure that I was putting out a quality product that wasn't um, maybe not what when some people think of self-publishing, they think of terrible covers or books riddled with errors on every page, and I didn't want to fall into that. Whether the someone likes the story or not is a different question, but I just wanted to make sure that I worked with a cover designer or an editor, and I just wanted to put something out there that I was happy with and that I thought um, you know, looked nice and was nice. And so, yeah, I think there's a stigma with self-publishing sometimes, but I found those stigmas to be wrong for the most part. Of course, since it is something that anyone can do, of course there's books out there that are um, that haven't been edited or that haven't been, that maybe don't look the greatest. And so, of course, they're out there. But a lot of the people that I've, become friends with, the people I've seen on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere, a lot of the self published books that I've read have been amazing. And I think the really cool thing about self publishing and indie works in general is that um, they can really push different things into the genres, or they can flip genre expectations. And so there's more room for diversity, and there's more room for other, everyone's voice to be heard. Whereas sometimes in traditional publishing, um, a lot of people like to use the word gatekeepers for agents and the big publishing houses. They definitely control what's being released, and whether it's good or not is not really part of the question anymore. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stigmas around self-publishing that are wrong. But the one thing I will say after, and of course I don't have an agent yet, and that's definitely something in the future I would love for to happen. But querying is really difficult right now, and um, I definitely have a lot of respect for querying authors and authors that have gone through the whole kind of war zone that is querying right now. And I have a lot of respect for that because querying is hard. And I know agents, just kind of seeing that side of it where we think of them as gatekeepers, but they're they're just doing their jobs, and they get so many queries per day that it really a certain book really has to spark with them, like that. Hey, they have to be head over heels in love with it. And so it's just it is, I think both means of publishing have their difficulties, and I respect authors on both sides for sure.
Okay. Uh, Next question. How would you say the reception of your books or books, whichever you wish to choose, has been so far? And given the reception you did receive, did you have any teachable moments, or would you say there have been things that you noticed you didn't do particularly well in that instance and decided to change in some way for the next book? And what does that change look like?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think kind of with any sort of feedback, or of course, once you put a book out there, it's no longer yours, um, and so it can be humbling to read reviews, but I definitely do like to kind of sit back and take it all in, and like, yeah, I've gotten my plenty of really good reviews that really keep me going. And those kind of reviews definitely make you feel good, and makes you want to keep writing. But then, yeah, you're right. There will be some reviews that are a little more humbling, and you might learn something from it. Um, Whether it's just the fact that maybe my marketing wasn't to the right person, but I think I've learned a lot from my first couple of books that I know one I can think of. There's probably a handful of things, but right now the one that's really coming to mind is pacing. So I think being an underwriter, I can tend to um, make a book go way too fast. The pacing is often really fast. And so that's something I learned with my first couple books that I need to learn how to slow it down and um, kind of take my time with certain parts of the storytelling. Yeah, certain parts need to be fast, but certain parts I need to slow down. And so that was something I definitely learned um, from my first book and even parts of my second book. I think I got better as time went on. And so, for example, I just finished doing some big edits from Her Dark Enchantments. And so, working with the editor on that, there were a few places where they were like, "Hey, I think the reader would want to see this happen." They would want to spend a little more time in this part of the story, and so I think I've learned a lot over book reviews, from readers, their comments, and then also from my current editor from their comments. So it's just been, yeah, I think one thing I always try to remember that as a writer, I'm always learning, whether I write 5 books, 10 books, 20 books, I'm always going to be learning, and none of them are going to be perfect. And that's just how it is as an author. It's a work of art, and once it's out there, people are going to say what they want to about it. And so I think that's kind of the beauty in it. Everybody sees something different, and but yeah, no, I'm definitely always learning, and yeah, even whether it's a good review or a bad review, I try to see what um, try to look at it from the reader's perspective, and so it really helps out. I know some authors might not want to read their reviews, but I think it helps out. Like once you're in a certain mindset, you have to take your mental health into consideration. There might be times where you don't want to read them. You're just you know, maybe have someone look at them and tell you the good parts. But I think once it settles down, if you're in a good mental state, for any author, maybe if someone's thinking about publishing or they've just published or whatnot, just take your mental health into consideration before reading the reviews. But I think it's important to read them all. And yeah, like you said, I think there's always something to learn from the readers.
Okay. That was okay. Now let's take this question not from a content standpoint, but from a uh, marketing slash production logistics standpoint. When it came to actually managing the release, what would you say were the lessons learned in that particular field?
Mm. So yeah, with book releases and marketing, I'd say, and I saw this advice everywhere, so I feel like maybe it's silly to re-say it, but I think the book cover is always the biggest piece of marketing that any author is going to have, and also to make sure that your cover reveal coincides with either your book release, or if you're going to do a pre-order, that it coincides with that. I think because that very first day that you show off the cover, that's when you're going to have the most likes and retweets or shares or anything like that. That's going to be the biggest impact day. So I always, if anybody's asking, if anyone asks me for advice on book releases, that's the biggest part. But I do think it's important to have a really nice cover, and also just sometimes, like, before a book release, it's good to just make connections with other writers and other readers, and to just, as hard as it is to constantly be on social media, That is sort of how a lot of authors are selling their books right now. So it's important to make those connections and to read, if you're an indie author, it's important to read other indie books. It's important to write reviews. It's important to, yeah, just make those connections with other authors. But I think my biggest piece, yeah, is definitely the cover. Yeah, that's probably my biggest piece of advice. I love cover reveals, and I think it's always the most exciting part.
Okay, we're we're almost at the end here.
Okay.
But before I close off, there is something I would there's something I would like to know. Of all the questions I have asked you so far, is there any you would want me to answer?
Oh, trying to think. They've been all been like such good questions. I just always like to know more about the writer themselves. So, what you would ask me like what my favorite part of the writing process was. So, for you, what is your favorite part of the writing process?
As of right now, the answer is a tie between uh, writing dialogue and writing action scenes,
Oh,
because
fun.
in both instances we're talking about uh, scenes where something's happening, something's going on, like uh, tensions flare up. There is an exchange. There is a point people are striving towards, and even if you know the point, it is somewhat interesting to see how these different people try to reach it or try to stop each other from reaching it, and and that is something that is always fun to explore and and to really imagine
Yeah.
and then set on the page.
Yeah, that is a good answer. That is, you're right. That is awesome.
Yeah. And last but not least, is there any link or platform you would like to shout out, or did you would want to mention?
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, if anybody's interested, you can check out my website, www.rosalynbriar.com. And yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Rosalyn Briar. And yeah, you'll be able to follow what's going on with all the different book releases coming up. So, but yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I'm so excited that you had me on here, and I just really thank you so much for taking the time to interview me. Thanks.
Well, thank you for stopping by, and thank you to the lovely audience who has been watching us for about 48 minutes as we rambled on about this thing we love, we enjoy, we find meaning within. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation, the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. Ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. Rosalyn's links, all of them will be in the description down below. And then right after them, there will also be my own, including a master link for where you can find my book, Heir to the Empire: Next Generation, and most major book retailers. Until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair. Once again, thank you, Rosalyn.
Thank you.